right, so we have our second presenter. It's going to be Miss Edie Woelfle with Keyboarder. Could you all please give her a nice warm round of applause?
So my name is Edie Woelfle. I'm a fractional CTO. I own a consulting firm called Keyboarder. We do obviously fractional CTO work and also custom software development end-to-end from requirements all the way through deployment and QA, the whole shebang. What's been interesting, so obviously I'm a CTO. I was an engineer. I've hung up my engineering hat. What's been really interesting being a technology leader during all of this innovation is obviously the impact on engineering effort. But what you guys probably don't see, right, is that it's leading a lot to a lot of pressure and a lot of pressure cooker to get more things out quickly, right? And one thing that I want to keep in mind, going back to your comment about, context in, context out, right? One, I'll tell you a story that from my job this past couple of weeks. I had a sales agent who was vibe coding dashboards for his clients, so he could give custom or give information and business insights to his portfolio, not realizing that he was limiting how many rows he was calculating and giving them the incorrect insights, right? So this thing is also putting a lot more pressure cooker on my engineering team because we are having a lot of these almost side projects come in that the business is interested in. And obviously the business, being this one in particular, being payments associated, would like us to review, the engineers review for security, and that has been, obviously we are fighting, or I am fighting on behalf of my team, because we do have live products, we do have live customers. One of the products that we have is a 25-year-old point of sale system, all right? Moving anything in that environment is, let's just say, an uphill battle, because we have so much context and so much legacy there. But AI is helping us bring it up to modern standards, but it is still at a snail's pace in comparative to when you're building a new project, right? All of us here have had a thing where we've just thought we're going to go vibe code it out. We vibe code it out, and it makes it so easy, it makes it so fun. We also know that we probably would never, at least us in this group, would never actually probably turn that over to real life users, right? But there is a level of due diligence that we'd expect. But that pressure is coming down, and it's coming down really hard. And it has been an uphill battle, even more of an uphill battle, to educate outside of the technology wing of the business exactly like what goes into it. Right? I'm already having to educate on the process of software development. How we go from understanding the need of the client through our due diligence before we go and put engineering effort into it, and then through the process of making sure we haven't broke shit, right? That's what I like to tell them, before we release it out. But obviously AI has made the requirements and the requirements gathering process a hell of a lot faster. It's made the UI UX design exponentially more expedient, and it's made the coding more expedient. But right now, from an engineering leader perspective, I'm bottlenecked at QA. I know that traditionally the golden ratio between QA and engineering has been about 3 engineers for every 2 QA, right? If you actually want a solid, stable product. That is almost becoming inverted, right? Where we're pushing out so much code, we're pushing out so many new things. And a lot of that is executive and leadership driven, right? They want to see this new thing. They have this deal on the line. If you can get this feature out, how many of you guys are living that right now? You're like, yep. If we can get this one feature out, we can land this major deal. Now, I have historical evidence that they actually do never land the deal, so we're not putting a whole bunch of stuff into production that we then later have to maintain. So it has been really interesting to try to explain that to leadership. Like, we know we can't just raw dog ship this out to production. especially when we're processing people's personal credit card information. Not going to happen. And also, it has been interesting and I'm sure that some of you guys will eventually live this reality, where someone else is building this side project, and there's all these different side projects to help them do what they need in the business, but that they eventually want to roll out company-wide. And who's going to be the guys who are in charge of or responsible for helping make that happen? It's all of you. So from a standpoint of making sure that my engineers stay productive and focused, reducing a lot of that noise has been a major, major challenge. Also, I will say, like, I know that we said that we hope that people aren't just building a whole bunch of stuff and shipping it out, but I literally just let go of an engineer because he was vibe coding a whole bunch of stuff and trying to ship it out. And when we went to go ask him what it did, he could not tell me what the code did, right? So please don't do that. I also found out another engineer of mine was coding a competitor product using our cloud accounts. Please don't do that, right? Like, all these things, like, nobody thought these things would be the problem when we started introducing AI into our engineering teams. It has just spun off. It's like you see the productivity there, but all of these side noise is what's unmanageable about it. So as long as you guys can stay in, checking your model's code, understanding what your agents are doing, how all of them work together, what they're outputting, making sure they're not, injecting viruses into other people's software, I'm happy. All right, I'm a happy technology leader. But on the other side, we, being the, more of the pioneers in this space, also need to understand that AI is helpful in a lot of other different contexts, right? One of the things that I'm really pushing into my business is, or outside of my engineering team, is simple tasks that the rest of the company has to do every day. Like, what can we do to either inject AI into it, and sometimes AI isn't the answer, or just purely automate it, to make them more streamlined and more, to give us more value for their time, right? Something else that I'm worried about as an engineering leader is, and again, this comes from my experience being a fractional CTO of startups. I have to do a lot of rescue missions on some people's vibe-coded projects that they try to release out and get funded. I couldn't even begin to tell you guys how much of that crap my team has had to clean up. But also, and I'll get some context to this, where this past 2 weeks ago, I was asked to get on a product demo with another point of sale system that we were thinking about acquiring. I got on the demo, and the guy spent more time explaining to me how he got his AI agents set up to actually do the work than showing me the point of sale system underneath, right? When he said to me that he was just having agents build stuff, and that his head of HR was also building features in their product and just shipping it to production, that they were shipping to production 10 times a day, I said, absolutely fucking not, this is dead on arrival. I was like, this thing cannot use our payment system, right? We have our own point of sale, that's one thing, but we also have a payment system. And I'm like, he was also using X.AI, which is a known Chinese product. And what was DeepSeek? He was also using DeepSeek, and I was like, absolutely not. Absolutely not with American citizens' personal credit card information, right? But there is so much energy and like wanting to be a part of that movement that is coming down from the owners of the company and the other executives, that it's becoming a dam that I'm not personally going to be able to hold back for my team much longer. So a lot of my energy and effort is focused around understanding how that impacts my team outside of their day-to-day jobs, because it is coming and it happens all the time. People asking us to build like build AI agents for little things, things that they should be able to go and, build their own little markdown report. And we've taught them how to do it. They don't want to do it. So anyway, it's been interesting. Again, there's a lot that I worry about, again, coming from the legacy product perspective. When I was thinking about the years worth of technical debt and history that my product in particular has accumulated over 25 years, I worry about how much of that, like how many products that are going to be 2 or 3 years old are going to have the technical debt of a 25-year-old system if we're not careful, right? Job security for all of us, right? But that is going to be something that, obviously when we look at maintaining versus building new, that is quickly becoming more and more of it's easier to build new, but there's also user impact to building new, and I don't think that is resonating. Something else, I talk about the feature factory a lot. Getting that pressure from executives, well, can you just build out this one little thing? Can you do this one little thing? Can you push it out? The data that we're seeing is it's not been worth it. Like, we need to be more outcome focused. So my challenge for all of you is to, when you're going to go build that new feature, when you're asked, if you're asked to go build that feature from someone who's higher up from you, say, what is the purpose of this and what outcome are we trying to achieve? Because building code to build code is one thing, but I would hope that everyone here is trying to build stuff to help people's lives. That's why people get into software development, right? Like, we want to build the tools and solve problems for other people. And that wave, I think, is coming. I just don't know when. I think the Uber CEO the other day said that they used their token usage and said that of the 76 features that they released this year, that none of them had any impact. Like, none of their users were actually using any of them. Really interesting concept, right? So when we get all wrapped up in the tokens and the code and how are we checking all that, just remember, like, at the end of the day, all of this is to help other people's lives or to help your life get better, right?
Do you think with the big, huge amount of shipping that all these big tech companies are doing now, and the features not being used because it's not outcome focused, do you think that, it's a macro question, and I do have actually a specific question as well, but do you think that justifies the layoffs that are in process and coming further, where it's like, yeah, everyone can ship more, but we don't need more features?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Because one thing that I will say concerns me macroeconomic wise is AI is heavily subsidized, right? Like, AI is extremely heavily subsidized. We are in the gold rush, golden era. That is coming to an end. It will come to an end. That worries me more so for junior engineers, actually. Something that I'm really focused on in my company is we have some junior engineers, and I worry that they are not getting enough experience to understand what good looks like.
So to tag on to that, my specific question for you and your work is, with the whispers about Mythos and then Cloud Code, or OpenAI's Glasswing, or whatever it's called, right? Is there a trend line here where the code that's being put out is just more elegant, better, sharper? Like, is it going to actually serve the QA role at some point?
No.
Okay.
Something that ultimately, like, we have, like, if you go back to the basics, right? You have unit tests and functional tests and all this stuff. Like, that aids in QA, but nothing really right now replaces someone actually looking at it and going, yes, this is right. Yes, this is usable from a human perspective. That human touch, I don't think is going to go anywhere.
But is that more of like a product managing UX person who's giving that feedback to a Mythos to actually implement, or is it
No, it's more on the other side of it still.
Okay.
Because again, a lot of engineers are pumping out a lot of code that they are not checking what it is. I tell my engineers personally, if it gets checked under your name on GitHub, if I go into GitHub and I say git blame, if you check it in, it's your fucking problem, right? None of this Claude told me. right? I was like, you wouldn't say to me, Google told me, right? If I asked you a question, you know, I would say, where did you get that from? How did you get that source? Like, you know, let's go and look at it. How did you come to this derivative, right? For example, like the sales guy, giving that presentation to those businesses, using the wrong fucking data. Not that he didn't have the data in his hands, he had all of it in the CSV file, but, but what he didn't know is that when he was coding it out, it was more focused on performance than it was accuracy. And when we asked him, how did you calculate that number, he said, I have no fucking idea, right? Now I wouldn't expect him to because he's a sales guy, but then then it becomes my problem because management wants us to ship out this application, right? Which had no authentication. People could read each other's payment information, all that stuff. It was really wonderful. Okay, so I mean, maybe I'm little Debbie Downer because I'm seeing the other side of the impact. So going back to your original question, remember when Lyft and Uber were like super new, you know, super freaking cheap, and they were trying to get the taxis out, right? We're living in that same age. Eventually, the investors are going to come due. Question is, are we going to see enough trade-off for value for what people are spending in AI to keep putting that money into it? Especially if what's happening is a lot of unskilled people are putting out a lot of unskilled things that are causing larger problems in the marketplace, right? I think from what I've told my engineers is they need to become more solutions architect focused, right? Because even if the raw code isn't what you're doing every day, understanding how the systems work together and in best practices is going to go much further than what language you know. And again, for my junior engineers, I'm trying to get them, and COVID has had a real large impact in this too. They don't have that almost pair programming exercise that we used to have when we were learning engineering. Trying to get them more coupled with senior engineers who are also using AI so that not only are the junior engineers understanding the best practices and the best forums, but they're seeing how the senior engineers are interacting with it instead of just scripting stuff and throwing it away. But you know, I have seen increase in velocity from my team. The question is, will I continue to see that increase in velocity, or will that increase in velocity equate to the spend once that spend becomes, like once we're no longer locked in on the 125 a month plan, right? Because that day is coming. We've already kind of heard rumblings of that they're gonna be going pure token focused. And as of right now, I don't know have an answer to that.
Do your clients give you a token budget today?
So for me, no.
You're the CTO, right?
I'm the CTO, yeah.
Right, so it's their team of engineers, but you're managing them.
Yes. I mean, I have my own engineers too, but that's another story. I have, so for most of my clients, I'm managing their engineering team. So, again.
And you don't know of any token budget they're giving to their engineering team or that they have in mind?
Well, I do know that I took an engineering budget, and I'm saying that it's probably going to get eaten up really fast once
Once it moves to API.
Once it moves to API usage, yeah.
But they mostly see it on like max plans, basically.
Then they'll have a harder incentive to take a look at the quality, basically, right?
In what way?
Well, because now they're paying more for that velocity that you described. Like if that starts to hit them more, like, oh, we're using API usage.
Right.
Do we need all these slop features if that's what they are?
God willing, right? God willing that will become the problem that, that will lessen my load a lot, because right now I'm pretty much Dr. No, like I have to go and be like, we're not fucking doing this, right? We're not putting in, like one of my engineers, one of them I let go. This is why I let him go. Well, there was a lot of other things, but this was one of the big ones. He decided, again, we have restaurant point of sale software. And one of the things he did was he built this iPhone app where I guess the server could like talk into the restaurant or into the app to have it put in the order. Now, how awkward would that be if you're at a restaurant where you're telling the restaurant or the server their order and then they just turn around and put it into their phone. But also, all of you have been to modern restaurants, they're loud as hell, right? How is it going to capture that voice?
And the names of their menu items are extremely complex.
Right.
And often can't be pronounced.
And there's a lot of allergies and add this, sub this, do this, extra mayonnaise, you know, all of that nuance that needs to be right on when that ticket hits the kitchen, right? Because that is a real cost for the restaurant owner. But he wasn't thinking about that. He didn't care. He just wanted to ship to his people. So then he went to the owners of the company and demoed it for them without telling me. And then I had to go on a multi-week mission to get this thing killed. Because I was like, we're not putting this into a 25-year point of sale system. Like, it's just not gonna happen. I was like, have any of you been to a restaurant? Yes. Was it loud? Yes. And that's why we're not doing it, right? It's the hype and the feeling, the emotion around it right now is way outweighing the logic and reason. And one thing we are also good at as software engineers is to be logical and reasonable. So we have to be the ones who guide them down the path of realism.
What do you think of like what Tim was presenting with harnessing, custom harnessing, better harnessing, that plus a better model? I mean, when you talk about systems architecture and best practices, in my mind, a lot of what a harnessing does is institutionalizes that.
I'm talking more like solutions architecture from the traditional sense of like how the system you're building works together.
Okay, yeah.
Not so much, I mean, however you want to get that work done. That's what I tell my guys. However the fuck you want to do it, right? But at the end of the day, I need the product to be able to go to an end user and function. And I need to be able to onboard millions of people every day and not have it just crumble.
Oh, it's the architecture of the system of the product.
Yes.
Okay.
Like, that is where a lot of my engineers just naturally started to spend more of their time since the raw coding was going away. So traditionally, we would have someone who would be a solutions architect who would work on ensuring that all of that system that goes to put it into production and scale functions properly. And a lot of that comes down to a lot of micro decisions, right? So that's where a lot of my engineers already were starting to move prior to me coming in.
Do you see with the product executive, anybody who's not on the engineering side, this is from my personal experience, I've seen also is that they think AI can do anything, and then you have the engineers who are at the solutions focus, and they're like, hey, you can't do this, we can give you, they break it down, like they show it in smaller problems and deliverables that in 2 weeks time you can do this, in 4 weeks time you can do this. And you see the pushback of like, well, no, we have AI, we built it yesterday.
Yes. When they brought me that vibe-coded dashboard, and they're like, we're going to unveil this to all of our clients by July 1st. Now, granted, this was 2 weeks ago. I was like, oh my God. One, we don't even have all that data that they're pulling in a database. It's just in 200 separate spreadsheets. So I was like, there's no freaking way. I was like, all right, well, one thing we could do is when we roll out this dashboard, we've got to have all that back data, like historical a decade worth of data has to be backloaded into it. So one of my engineers started building like a custom, like he used Claude and he gave it some examples of the CSVs and wrote up this whole prompt and got it to where it built like an intake form for our finance team. But going back to what you said, I when I first saw this thing, I said, you guys are giving us a vibe-coded budget for an enterprise level product. Because they're like, can't you just do that in like a weekend? No, I cannot just do it in a weekend. I'm not going to roll it out to other multi-million-dollar businesses for them to get business insights. Because when, at the end of the day, our name's at the bottom of it, right? And if we're giving people the wrong information and they're making business decisions on it, they're no longer going to be our customers, one way or another, right? So yeah, it's become like the front side of building software, much more difficult. Because you have to justify every little thing you do now, right? Or, I just built it in a weekend, or my buddy down the street said that he could build up on local. It's like, okay, well, go have him do it then, right? And then, inevitably they come back and want to be your clients because they fucked something up and got it cleaned up. But that's beside the point.
I had a CEO ask me to build a QA team and get rid of all the QAs. He's like, you can build it in AI and AI will check everything. I was like, you cannot do that.
No, you cannot.
That is not physically possible.
It's not like if you need a human engineer to look at the code to make sure it's not injecting crazy stuff, right? I know all of you have run into this where it's like rebuilding stuff instead of importing a library, where it's putting in crazy stuff where half the code is functional programming, the other half is God knows what, right? And you go through and you're like, okay, if there needs to be a human on the front end of it, making sure that before it goes to a state that it's not doing something risky, it makes logical sense there needs to be a human on the other side of it to make sure it can actually function for a human, right? As long as humans are still doing the actions, right? I mean, I guess we have kiosks in restaurants where you can go up and key in your order and everything else, but that's not a luxury experience, right? There's always going to be people wanting a more luxury experience, which is going to have human connection. So as long as there's another human at the end of that product that is going to be using it, I need another human checking it to make sure that human can actually use it.
There's still a human checking that kiosk still though, at some point, hopefully.
Don't use your end users as your live QA, please. That's the business. It works when you have like 2 or 3.
No, I mean someone who's built the kiosk system. There's someone QAing that at some point.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. As long as there's,
Yeah.
before it gets to the customer, there needs to be somebody,
Yeah.
like human reviewing it. Yeah. Any other questions, thoughts, concerns, sign remarks? I'm just a peach to work for, I know.
Sort of curious your take on Frontier Labs eating up this startup space with like new product drops, release and so forth.
I mean, what is there to think about it? As long as, there's always going to be new innovation, new things. And a lot of what we have seen in the startup space has not been a ton of new invention and new ideas. It's been a lot of, we can make these two systems work more cohesively together for this specific subset of users, right? There's always going to be entrepreneurs and people who are out ahead of the curve. So I'm not necessarily worried about that. I think we were living a couple of years ago in almost another bubble, right, where everybody was just trying to throw a whole bunch of money into a whole bunch of startups trying to get that next Silicon Valley fix. That just didn't quite materialize the way that they wanted to.
Where do you think the opportunity space is?
Building models.
Like custom models?
Yeah. I have a guy in IT actually who, traditionally the guys in IT would like to graduate to become programmers. I don't know why they went that route, but that's the way they went. And one thing that I spoke to him about was that if I were to go back today, I would focus more on actually building the models themselves. And I think that we need to have a better look at models outside of LLMs. There's dozens of other types of models out there that are way better at multiple other tasks that people are just throwing LLMs on top of because that's all they know. In time, the money is going to be having your own custom model that's built explicitly for this thing. And not so much like we've taken a generic model and retrofitted it into our product. Another thing that I advise my startup clients on is owning your data and understanding when to get off of a pre-built model for yourself, right? Once you got that customer validation, once you start to get that investment, figure out a way to own your own data and not use it through, pipe everything through like a Claude or a ChatGPT, like an off-the-shelf AI solution, and focus on purely perfecting that space that you're in.
You can run it locally.
Is that for data security or for just having a better?
Intellectual property.
Okay. And
Because-
fine-tuned model. as
In
well.
fine-tune models, right, so, what I tell my clients is, if you're giving all that data, I know that they have in their terms and service that they're not supposed to use your data or whatever, right? Like that's, we all know that's bullshit. So if you are really moving and shaking, it's only a matter of time. And if you fed your competitor all of your intellectual property secrets along the way, what's stopping them? And when they've got buku's more money, buku's more engineers, and a lot more willpower to do so, what's stopping them from doing that? So, a lot of, with my early stage startups is, okay, we can thread these different models together for these different steps of the process. I make them sit down and actually talk to me, like what is your step-by-step process that you're trying to replicate, and help them document out what that means on a technology level, primarily for intellectual property security. Because I don't want an Anthropic or a ChatGPT coming back behind them and just taking that idea and copy and pasting it. So that's what I focus on.
Also,
So what running like how you running is
Hermes engine.
Hermes with Quinn?
Yeah.
Would something like that fit the model that you're talking about, but
No,
customizing it?
One caveat, I'm running Quinn locally, not in the cloud.
okay, there's one thing, I mean, but are you still using somebody else's pre-built model on your local machine?
Yes.
Okay, so what I'm saying is build the model itself.
So build your own Quinn, so to speak.
Like, there's a
How do you
ton
go
of,
about doing that?
I'm just curious.
start learning machine learning.
yes, machine learning, right, data analytics, that's where, I mean,
It's all machine learning.
if you, it's all, the reason why it's becoming an explosive in popularity now is purely around that the computational power has become much cheaper to do so. A lot of these models have been around for 30 years, right? Like LLMs have been around for a long, long time. Like how long has Google had predictive text, right? A long damn time. What I'm saying though is like getting back down to building your own custom model based on your very specific niche application. Because that's your intellectual property. How you do that thing is your intellectual property. So that's what makes investors and other companies want to acquire you, is because they can't go and build explicitly what you built without, usually violating your patent.
Or having access to your proprietary data. That's the
Or
only
your data.
that's the only moat left today, is proprietary data. Literally, if you look 5 or 10 years into the future, the only companies that will be left are the ones that have proprietary data.
Well, and maybe custom models for back-end.
Well, I mean, you have to have the data to build those models, and I think building the model part will actually just become a commodity too. So this man right here is working on that right now, so.
I am working, well, yeah, company, not me specifically, I'm not the researcher, but
Right.
yeah, our company, we're trying to build custom models. We have, our
Right.
founders are machine learning,
Mhm.
scientists out of Georgia Tech.
Yep.
Actually, and, what we do, we actually don't need that much data. We can generate
You
synthetic
can do
data.
synthetic data too.
So if you just give us a few, it depends obviously on the use case and the workflow, but with even a small amount of data and just good, guidance, we can generate synthetic data and train.
I mean, ultimately, right, like a lot of these programming models, they learn to program from reading Stack Overflow
And GitHub, but yeah.
in public GitHub repos,
Yeah.
right? I've seen some of those public GitHub repos, right? I don't like it, but a lot of them went and started putting a lot more information into, or, scraped Stack Overflow, right? Who had decades of history of engineering best practices and what to do. People are no longer programming or putting answers on Stack Overflow. That data model or that data source is almost stagnated. So where are they going and pulling all that information about how to code and what best practices could? And for the next thing.
They're not.
What was that?
Stagnation. Software is stagnating in that way. Name an innovation that's come out of the software space in the last 3 years.
I don't know.
0.
Well, I mean, the people who used to contribute, they still exist. They're just not contributing publicly, right?
Right.
Right.
So there might still be innovation, but
Good.
it's just.
But like
it's
if
just
you're a
more
front end
public.
developer, like SSR and like pre-fills and stuff for like a React app used to be like, that was innovation like 5 or 6 years ago.
Mm.
You look at the front end space, there's nothing. Back end space
React's
is.
pretty good.
What's that?
React's pretty
But
good.
my point is that there's not been another like
Sure.
big jump in terms of the underlying technology. That's
No.
something like React or Vue.js or whatever. Again, that's a front end example.
And not
Right.
public.
I think, yeah, a lot of
Definitely not
innovation
public.
you hear about is at the hardware level now.
Yeah, most of the
Yeah.
innovation has been on the hardware level, which again contributes to our current AI boom, because again.
Right, well, yeah, like you said, like the machine learning techniques are not, I mean, there are some machine learning techniques that have been developed specifically for training, LLMs now, but yeah, just the optimization at the hardware level, is what has, models are gonna keep getting better as long
Right,
as that
but
keeps
what
going.
happens when, most of our chips come out of Taiwan? What happens if China moves on Taiwan?
Well, less and less. I mean, we're onshoring to chip production pretty heavily, because we
Right,
know how important it is.
right, we know, but there is a lead time to that.
Yeah, we're in that lead time.
We're in that lead time.
Yeah,
Um,
and until then, Taiwan's a very big deal.
Right, and is that production going to keep up with the demand?
I don't know. NVIDIA, seems to be doing a decent job. So, but then again, if you want, H100s, H200s, good luck, trying to get them.
It's the demand right now vastly outweighs the supply.
Yeah, absolutely.
And going back to my earlier comment about we will see inflation in the prices of AI, because we're already seeing the upstream inflation of that.
Yeah.
Do you believe
I
in
think so.
companies then reshoring their own data racks? Or like the GPU racks?
God, I don't
If
imagine.
we're gonna build a custom model, should we then also just own our own?
That's use case dependent.
Yeah.
For like healthcare, financial services, maybe government.
The short answer to your question is probably not, because are you deploying to the cloud with proprietary data today? The answer is probably yes.
Yes.
So why would that be different for a GPU?
Except in certain use cases you don't.
Sure.
So where you're on-prem today, you would still want to be on-prem.
Right, exactly,
Yeah.
right. If you're doing sensitive healthcare, actually, they run healthcare on AWS now anyways, or both that stuff.
Yeah.
So-
But again, it goes back to owning that. I mean, even if it is in AWS's possession, you still own that.
But it's also a question of inference cost, just with owning your own inference.
Well, but have you guys had to pay a DevOps engineer? I have. They're not cheap, even for our cloud guys. And for the amount of code and products people are pumping out, what does that mean for the actual space and hardware that needs to be run for it, right? That's a cost benefit analysis that right now I'm saying is probably not worth it for most people. Well,
Wild times.
it is a lot of times.
I'm glad you think custom models are a good idea. That's nice to hear.
I hope that, I would each challenge you to go and try to look at building a model outside of an LLM.
We're working on a browser use model right now.
Like go and look at, any old, like pull up legit Python and go and look at some of the data models out there. Because ultimately, a lot of what people are ramming through LLMs right now will be better served using different models for, and that's where the cost savings is gonna go on into it. Right, we'll use LLM for writing code, writing blog articles, that kind of stuff. Like the other computational things that people are really trying to shoehorn into it right now are gonna be less and less prominent. That's the only way we're not gonna see like a huge blow up, is if people start realizing that there's things outside of LLMs out there, and begin to learn how to use them. So.